What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Venue RX. On this show today, it is one of our Real Wedding Venue Owner series. And this is something that I'm really, really excited about because it is a wonderful opportunity to talk to people who are in the business, who are currently running their wedding venue and running multiple wedding venues in the case of our guest today. And so I am really, really thrilled to welcome Jenny Lea on the show here today. Jenny, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You're listening to the Venue RX podcast.
You know, it's funny. I realized I didn't do my normal intro, which is on this podcast, we are passionate about documenting and sharing all of the best practices and all of the whole process really between owning and operating incredible venues. And I think as part of that, you know, talking to people who are really in the trenches, really running the business is so important because there's a difference between talking to someone who's a consultant or a coach and someone who's actually doing it and just getting those experiences. And there's so many people who are leaving this industry, but then also getting into the industry. And this podcast is for them. You know, this podcast is an opportunity to kind of see what is it like? What's the day-to-day like? Like, what does it feel like? You know, what are the struggles and everything? So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, for sure.
Very cool. Can you tell us about the two venues that you manage? Just kind of give us a high level.
Yes. So the Barn at the Gorge, I have owned it since 2016. We've done approximately about 175 weddings there. We are a seasonal venue, so we usually have weddings from March, April through early December. And then my new venue, which I purchased in March of 2021, it's Appalachian Rose Farm. It sits on 44 acres. It's got multiple ceremony sites, a beautiful reception barn, a bridal suite, and we've done about 30 weddings there.
Awesome. Congratulations, by the way, because that's not long to have had that. And that's so cool. How did it come about? Can you tell us a little bit of the origin story? Like, how did you go from not being in the wedding industry to now being in the wedding industry times two?
So I used to be a special education teacher, and I am originally from Southern California. Through my first marriage, I ended up here in Kentucky. And as a teacher and in small town Kentucky, sometimes your career isn't going to be, there's not a lot of growth just because you weren't born and raised there. So once I kind of figured the political system out, I kind of just took a leap of faith, and we had purchased a property with a purpose for another business and noticed that there was an old tobacco barn. And so I renovated it and started booking weddings at a very, very inexpensive rate. So it kind of got the name out there. And
what was that? If you don't mind me asking. I want to know all the T's, spill all the tea, because there are venue owners out there I know who are probably going through the same process, who are like, hey, heck, you $500, who wants to get married? Like, do people want to get married? Right.
So my original rate for the entire weekend was $1,000
for the entire weekend. Okay.
Yeah. So it's the wedding weekend where you check in the night before, you don't have to check out the day after. And and my thought was, okay, I'll book like 10 weddings a year. That'll be vacation money, yada, yada, yada. And so at the end of that our first wedding show, bridal show, I walked away with 25 booked. And I had 3 kids, and I just kind of had to make the decision there. Am I going to be a full-time teacher? Am I going to be a full-time venue owner and a full-time mother? Well, that's not capable. So I took the leap of faith and got out of education.
Wow.
I wasn't going to get rid of my kids, but
yeah, exactly. I have 5 kids, and it's crazy. I'm like, well, they aren't going anywhere. So I got to figure out, you got to adapt around them. Okay. So what was it like then making that first price adjustment? Because you probably, at what point were you figuring out like, oh my goodness, $1,000 for this wedding weekend is way too low? At what point did that kind of kick in and you realized you need to raise your prices?
So what kicked in? So first of all, was for me, it was more of like clientele. the first year was really rough because I didn't price anyone out. And so I had clients who could afford me, and there's obviously, just like, I don't shop at, Nordstrom Rack and Saks, off Saks, Fifth Avenue. I shop at Marshall's, so it's just one of those things that you get priced out of, of the venue. And so that was my first thing. And then I realized, just because that first year, there were some weddings, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this anymore. Just wild. And then I actually went to Wedding MBA in Vegas and figured out my contract. Like that was my biggest walk away from there, because just recognizing I needed so much more in my contract. And then at that point, recognizing that I couldn't do it alone. So I kind of transitioned from being just a venue rental to an all-inclusive venue. So at the same time, it was a perfect time to raise the rate, because then it was kind of like this package thing now. So it wasn't like, oh, well, she's, tripled her rate. It was like, oh, now it's an all-inclusive venue where everything comes with, and you don't have to, go and search for your own vendors on your own time.
So that was kind of a natural way for you to build in a price increase without it being so dramatic and stark of a change. 100%. I love that. I love that.
And it was a natural progression that, like, at first we started including like a DJ and the officiant, like things that I could, I could find those vendors fairly reasonably. Then a good friend of mine started doing my flowers, and he has his own greenhouse. So he grows the majority of his, fillers and stuff like that. And so he really only orders like the specific color that the bride is requesting in the main focal flowers. And so that kind of, that once we brought that in, people were like, oh my gosh, flowers too. And then a caterer kind of fell in my lap, and it was like, oh my gosh, catering too. So it was just like a natural progression. And luckily, with the area I'm in, these local vendors are not the same price level of the largest city near us, which is Lexington. So it's good for me. It's good for them, and it's good for the client.
Awesome. What was your marketing like? When you started off, what did you do for marketing? Did you have a marketing plan, or did you just say, I'm going to
fly by the seat of my pants?
Okay. And fair. I love that.
Make it till you make it.
At what point was it also kind of the Wedding MBA time when you went there and you said, okay, I need to start, maybe advertising on some different places? Can you give us a bit of your journey through your marketing awareness?
So really, majority of my marketing is definitely through social media. And that's how it's always been. In our area where we live, like, and I've noticed this just because, like, my sister's is still in California, like Facebook here is still used as like very like the community. If there's an accident on our main parkway, it's like there's an accident on the parkway near exit 20, whatever. And then people so it's still viewed as a very community thing, where in larger cities, it's just more of, look at this funny meme or sharing a post. So really Facebook and then other social media platforms was my focus. I do bridal shows just so I have a presence, because I don't want people to think that, like, oh, she's disappeared. And my first one, we got, like I said, we booked like 25 weddings from that first one. But since then, and after post-pandemic, people aren't attending those as much anymore. They've just kind of got used to their sole source of information is going to be from whatever they can find via Google or social media. And so I don't really know how much that actually benefits me anymore in regards to the bridal show aspect. Like, it's just kind of like this whole paradigm shift in regards to, well, that's not working, so I'm not going to put my money there. And then also, like, marketing wise, just, local, I do a lot for like schools and just sponsor a lot of, sports teams in the area just to get my name out there. And really just so it's familiarity. That would be one.
I love it. Perfect.
Don't make me say synonym either.
Nope.
Or the sprinkle, don't make me say that.
Now you got me thinking about it all crazy.
But yeah, and so just so my logo was familiar. There you go.
Totally.
Because like I said, like everyone is very interconnected here.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's it cracked me up. So when I got divorced, I immediately changed my name to Jenny Lea on social media, or when I got separated. And so like all the students at our high school are like, oh my gosh, it's Jenny Lea, and I'm like, I used to teach you in the first grade kind of thing, but so that just kind of became who I am. That makes sense.
Totally. Now, did you're talking about the area that you're in? Do you find most of your couples are coming from your local geographic area, or are people traveling to you?
So I'm in Red River Gorge, Kentucky, which is honestly like the midway point from the Eastern United States and the Midwest. So I've had quite a few weddings that I had one wedding that he was from Iowa and she lived in Rhode Island, and I was dead center. They didn't see the venue until they showed up the day before. I've had one from, she was from Philadelphia and he was from Eastern Kentucky. And that was so much fun because she was Puerto Rican and we had great dancing that night. And I was, just kind of like the fun halfway point. So, and I actually prefer weddings that are not in my general area because then I think there's a different expectation of the client. But a lot of mine come from Louisville, Cincinnati, Ashland, Lexington. That's where the majority of my couples that come from.
Got it. And I'm interested about that. What's your view on Wedding Wire or The Knot or platforms like that are kind of these local listing sites, or not local listing sites, but they're listing sites that are supposed to ideally put your name out in the local community? What's your viewpoint on those?
I think that they're a waste of money.
Totally.
And I think that, and I've noticed this a lot, even like on the national level, like when I've attended Wedding MBA, is that, they're sitting here trying to sell this product of, $1,400 a month, and you're going to get 15 leads. Well, I mean, I can get 15 leads without their service. Mm-hmm. So like, you're going to have to kick it up a notch or drop the price. And so I just find them kind of useless.
Totally. It's interesting. The more I have been in this industry, the more I've talked to venue owners, I've really found that a lot of people tend to either think that or think that after some experience, because they know that they can get leads from other places. And I think that's really interesting because it definitely, like, those platforms definitely give you a sense of security around like, oh, I can get leads from this site. You feel like, oh, great. Like, I'm going to buy their product and get the leads in. But then you start realizing, like you said, Facebook and Google, and there's so many different places where you don't have to spend that money because it's a free lead gen source. So that's.
Yeah. This year I brought on a new like social media marketer. And I mean, I pay her hourly. I send her the content. She posts it for me and knows how, the algorithms and all that stuff and how to get it to go everywhere. Because I don't know that. I'm 42. I'm past that stage of figuring that stuff out.
Well, and 42 is not that old. You have to give yourself a break. Seriously, because you can't, like, once you get into that headspace, like, you've got so much that you can do with these venues and so much you can do with social media, and social media changes.
I don't think I'm 42. I still think I'm 25.
I love it. It's changing the same thing for people, whether they're 25 or 42. It's insane how fast marketing is changing. Like, I look up and we're doing this podcast and we're doing everything else. And I am shocked. Like someone the other day told me that TikTok now was going to overtake Google as a search engine for Gen Zers. And I'm like, okay, like we're just working on Google now, like slow down everybody. So I totally get where you're at, but this brings up a really good question because you, as you're getting into this business, as you're starting to say, okay, I'm making the shift from the $1,000 wedding weekends to now, doing a bit more all-inclusive stuff. You've been on this journey a little bit more. At what point are you bringing on team members? Like at what point are you hiring people either as a contractor or as a part-time or full-time employee? How did that occur for you?
So my independent contractors, my vendors, that kind of, I was really particular because I needed to keep my price point. I couldn't have, vendors that were just going to overwhelm the budget. So that was my first.
Let me be a little bit more specific. Sorry about that. What were the first team members that you brought on specifically to support you at the venue, like a assistant venue manager, a venue manager, a sales manager, or something like that?
This year.
I love it. Okay. Very cool. And how long, and approximately how long was that? So you said 2016 was when Red River Gorge. So what is that? 6 years?
Yeah.
Something like that. Okay, cool. Again, this is really good because it's really important to see the different life cycles of like how you can run a venue. And it doesn't always have to be like you hire somebody, 60 days after you open. Like that's really scary. That's a whole different skill set.
Really scary. And honestly, I think if the pandemic hadn't hit, because that was just like, we just all froze.
Yeah. For 2 years almost, or a year, depending on where you were at in the country.
I built 15 farmhouse tables with the thought of, okay, the governor will allow me to hold weddings if I have disinfectable surfaces. Like it was just like pulling at strings of what can get me to reopen. And so, that's when like the budget was froze. Like we're not doing anything extra just so we can make it through. And by the grace of God, we made it through. So then last year was very just turbulent and stuff with the new venue. But then after me trying to run 2 venues on my own, that's when I was like, okay, I can't do this. I can't do this. Yeah. So then earlier this year, I hired an assistant, a full-time assistant. Really, to me, she just kind of keeps, making sure that I have brushed my teeth and things are set up for her. She's in the corner laughing over here at me.
I love it. So cool.
Like, where's my phone? Yeah.
Did you text them back? Yeah, I need someone like that actually. And that's invaluable when they're there, even with you in person, because you can definitely have VAs or people, but having someone there in person, 100%. What were some lessons that you learned from the first venue that you didn't, maybe mistakes that you didn't repeat for the second venue? Because now you're here, in the second evolution of doing this venue business. What things are you jumping immediately and saying, oh gosh, we're not going to do $1,000 wedding weekends anymore. We're not going to do some stuff. What does that look like for you?
So we are currently in transition to make the second venue all-inclusive.
Okay.
I did not want to do it the first year or even the second because I didn't want to overwhelm my vendors. And just because it's a lot, but they're all on board and are happy to do it. And so, and the thing is just kind of like going back to the $1,000 venue rental. When I send out my pricing, the first thing I send out is, are you familiar with what an all-inclusive venue is? Because if not, then when I send out my pricing, they're like in shock.
Yeah.
Like she's lost her mind.
Yeah.
So, so that's kind of my approach now with the second venue, is so that I kind of like, we're copying the same thing at the barn at the gorge as we are at Appalachian Rose Farm, just a different location. You get the same services, and then people kind of, oh, so this is for everything. And you're like, yes, this pricing is for everything minus, 2 or 3 things that are kind of optional because not everyone wants them.
So really, it sounds like you have an understanding of the buyer persona, who's looking at what you're sending to them and like what they're going to be thinking, maybe the psychology behind, so you can help not scare them maybe
Right.
with some of that. Okay.
And the other thing is that I also know who my client is. So I am not the luxury wedding planner. I'm not the ones, with 500,000 plus budgets. That's not me. And my venues aren't that. But then I'm also not the one who, just they're going to be doing a lot on their own. And typically I am the 25 to 35 age range. They're probably paying for it the majority of it on their own, not like their parents aren't paying for it. So they're, after college or got their first job. So they're still very budget mindful. And so that's my client. Out of the, 40, 45 weddings we do a year, I'd say maybe 5 are paid for by the parent.
Oh, wow.
Or someone else. So
Okay.
most of my clients are they are very budget aware because it's coming out of their own pocket.
Totally. So post-college, first marriage,
Yeah.
they're doing this independently. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then what are some things that you see them valuing, and maybe how has that changed? Like just the conversations that you had with the couples, how do you feel like those conversations have changed versus when you were at originally, with your first venue, Appalachian Farms? Like where was that, how has that changed? Meaning, like, are they still budget friendly? Have they gotten more budget friendly? Are they looking for things to be more included, like more of an all-inclusive feel? Do they want less inclusions because they want to make it more customized? Like what things are you seeing with the couples that are coming to your venues?
They want a wedding. They want it to be beautiful. They don't want the stress.
So they want it really more done for them, not done.
Yeah.
They don't want to do it.
Nope.
And they want it to be on a budget.
Yep. So I meet with them 3-4 times prior to, discuss their, color scheme and vision. And I have all these questions. It's like my method to my madness, and discuss what's important to them, what's not important to them. And then over the process of the year, they have all full access to me via, text and email. And because it is customizable, like, and that's a lot of what a lot of brides worry about is like, well, am I just going to get white flowers, or is my cake just going to be plain? And no, it's not. But I explained to them, if you want, like, I must have, burgundy dahlias, well, then that's going to be an upcharge. But if it's just the general color scheme, then it fits within the budget. Same on the cake. So, but a lot of it, so they send me their inspiration pictures. I kind of, get the feeling like this weekend's wedding is a regal Wizard of Oz, her words. And I'm like, okay, I feel you. So it's gold and emerald green and black and, lots of candles and light, next week.
Really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Next week is like, everything is dead. Everything is dry and dead. Like all of her flowers are dead. Just that very like out in the middle of like, the Mojave Desert dead.
Yeah. It's pretty dead.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what she wants. She wants the pampas grass and the boho and the, dried baby's breath and that kind of stuff.
Got it.
Very different than this week.
Got it. That is one of the things that I love about our industry, because it's so different. One day you said regal Wizard of Oz, and then in the same sentence, you put dead everything, the Mojave Desert. Like, I think that's great, but I think that perfectly illustrates the industry, right? Like we do get that variety, and so that's super cool. Do you find that as people are coming to you that they've done a lot more research than maybe they've done in the past online, so they're a little bit more educated, or maybe they have a better idea of what the process is for getting married at a venue? Or are people still coming pretty clueless and you really have to do a lot of education with them as far as like what to expect in this whole process of booking a wedding venue?
Yeah. So they are clueless. And And that's one of the things I typically tell them on venue tours. I'm like, look, I get married every weekend. Every weekend I get married. So, and you don't get married every weekend. Even if you've been married before, that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so no question is a stupid question.
Yeah.
Because if I assume, then that's just going to, that's not being transparent, and that's what I'm all about. So please ask me questions, even if they're completely stupid. I don't say stupid, but even if you think that they're stupid, that'd be
yeah. Yeah. Even if they feel like it's something that they should know or something, because there's probably some of that where they're a little concerned.
Like the bride we met with yesterday, she was like, we're going to do a memory table. And she thought the memory table was like memory lane of her and her fiance's like journey as a couple. And her mom was like, no, it's for dead people. She was like, I'm so conceited. Should I set it up? Am I conceited? I'm like, no, it's good. Like other people do, like, memory lane. I'm like, just because you're not focusing on, we just won't light candles and do a little seance or anything.
Yeah, it could look different. Doesn't have to be. Yeah.
Exactly.
I like that. Awesome. Well, Jenny, I really appreciate you being willing to just pop on here and share a bit of your experience. And as people are, hearing your story, hearing the process, I really hope they'll be inspired and also, just like have the pressure taken off a little bit, because it's like, there's so much information out there. Obviously, we're putting this information out here. Other podcast guests that I've had on, and people can get pretty complex with this. And it's really scary. And business is hard. Managing people is hard. The wedding venue business, especially if you haven't, like if you're coming from a teacher background, just like yourself. And so I just really appreciate you sharing your story. And if people want to go check out either of your two beautiful venues or interested in just connecting with you more and what you do, where should they go to connect with you?
So you want to go to eventsbyjennylee.com, and Lee is Lea. And then there's a contact form there. And I can, they can contact me, book a venue, tour, whatever they need to do.
Awesome. I love it. Very cool. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And we'll have to stay in touch. I'm really excited as your venue continues to grow. This is really exciting. The newest one here.
Too. Me too. Very cool.
Very cool. All right. Thanks for coming on.
Right,
bye, everyone.
bye.
See you in the next episode.